All right, this is Kate Cassidy. She's a newer YouTuber. She started her channel very recently, I think less than a year ago. And apparently, she lives in New York City. I don't know her age. She says she used to work for TikTok. And during that time, she realized how horrific social media is for the average person. And I totally agree. And because of that, she's off all forms of short form social media and she's into long form stuff like this, like YouTube. And she's kind of picked up on this idea that everything's kind of the same. Everything's now that everything's available to everyone, that social media is flattening culture is kind of what her hypothesis is.
Why does everything look similar now? From the way we dress to the way we talk to even our physical appearances, is it all starting to look and feel the same? As someone who used to work at TikTok and is now observing media and tech trends as a talking head here on YouTube, I fear that we're starting to fall into this cultural monoculture that at its core is being shaped by the algorithm. And
Okay, first of all, I agree with this. I'd say especially it's true with women. All women seem to want to have the same look. They get their lips puffed up, every wrinkle in their face is gone like they're a robot or something. They all have the same trending colors and changing outfits. You can never see them wearing the same thing twice. And they all look kind of the same. They all have the same look. Everybody kind of wants that. And it just goes on from there. I mean, it goes much deeper than that, but that's just my initial, reaction of that.
and algorithmic feeds being so
Oh, algorithmic feeds. That's the other thing. The algorithm is designed by all the tech bros, the techno feudalists, lords of techno feudalism, and they have determined what the algorithm is and what the algorithm rewards. And so people are making content that fits right in with that.
prevalent in our daily lives now. And this monoculture is happening globally, where trends and personal taste, language and looks, it's all being flattened into this sameness, and it's impacting more areas than we realize. Social media isn't just changing how we communicate, it's starting to flatten culture itself.
Okay, if you agree with the hypothesis that the world is run by large corporations, which I definitely agree with, the large corporations want this. That if they can flatten culture, if they can kind of funnel you in to wanting certain things, those are the things they provide. Once you get outside of that paradigm, worse yet, you realize that outside of that paradigm is better, you are going to potentially destroy their businesses.
Stripping it down, taking out any depth or differentiation. Trends are moving faster, individuality is harder to come by, and everything feels constantly curated for someone else.
Yes, when I say constantly curated, she's saying fake. People's personal lives, they're like unpaid employees of Mark Zuckerberg posting on Facebook, only the highlights, make yourself jealous, humble brag, etc., etc.
I was reflecting on this a lot recently at a coffee shop here in New York City. The funny thing about me is I recently moved to New York, and because I don't have social media, I don't know the hot places to go. I don't know the trendy spots. Sometimes my sister will send me like a downloaded TikTok that has the 12 coolest drink spots to try out this weekend, stuff like that. But more often than not, if I am finding something cool and interesting, it's because I am wandering around and stumbling on it. And so recently, I was
Not hard to do that in New York City, but there aren't many places where you can find new and unique things without going on the internet or social media.
was I was around. I was doing my little neighborhood. You know, I might leave that in. I was doing my little neighborhood stroll, and I was hankering for a coffee, because that is one thing about me. As much as I have tried to quash my social media addiction, there is one addiction in my life that I let fly, and it is my caffeine addiction. So I was wandering in a new neighborhood that I didn't know too well, and I needed to find a coffee shop because I wanted to sit down, have a little Wi-Fi, do a little work. And so what I do, of course, is go on Google Maps, and I type in those classic words. I type in coffee shop Wi-Fi near me. Of course, only second to the more common food near me, which I probably type in a little too frequently. So I go to the closest coffee shop because I don't need to go to the coolest coffee shop. I need to go to the closest coffee shop. And I sit down and I get my coffee. And the first clue I had that this was going to be an interesting experience is my coffee came out I ordered a cold brew, and it came out in a patch. and it came out in a pouch. It came out in a pouch with a straw stuck in it and like finger handholds. And I was very, very confused by this. I also noticed that in the doorway there was a swing, which I was like, oh, it's like a nice spring day. That's cute that they have a swing here. But I'm sitting there behind the swing, sipping from my pouch of iced coffee.
Okay, she's going on and on about this. I wish it was a little shorter, but I will tell you that, you know, I think she's going to get to the point where all these coffee shops are basically the same. Now, my wife Denise and I, we travel all over the place. We're constantly traveling. We don't drink as much coffee as we did. I do think any addiction is bad. Any kind of substance that you are addicted to, or you have a bad habit of where you can't take a break for one day, is a problem. So that's a problem that we want to stay away from. But something we did notice is that, you know, for years and years, it seemed like, oh, this is cool. Look at the decor in here. What have they done, etc. What cool things. But now they're all kind of the same and curated, like she says, for social media, likes, posts, sharing, on and on.
And I'm looking around this coffee shop and I'm starting to realize this entire place has been built specifically to be shared on social media. There's neon signage on the walls. It's generally like a very contrived, hip looking environment. And then the cherry on top of this entire experience was the barista cashier actually came out. We started chatting a little bit, and she then asked if she could take a picture of me, if I could pose for a picture for her to put on their Instagram story, because that is how they do their social media marketing, is they take pictures of people in this very hip coffee shop with their hip-looking pouch coffees and then put it on their social media. And that just confirmed my...
Okay, so even if she's not a free employee of Mark Zuckerberg's, she's a free employee of this coffee shop that she went to over there in New York City.
My belief, my thought that I had while sitting there and waiting to get the Wi-Fi code, it confirmed my belief that this space was created, the entire design was influenced by the future subsequent social media marketing that they were going to do for it. And that was a really eye-opening one for me to realize.
But you got to also think too that rent's higher than ever. I mean, you got to do everything you can. You got to leverage everything you can to stay in business these days. And that's one of the reasons why rent is higher, because they know you can do that. Your business can do that and needs to do that in order to survive. In the past, you couldn't do that, and rents were a lot lower. And that's one of the reasons why rents were a lot lower, in my opinion. She doesn't really touch on this, but I wanted to point that out.
Oh wow, this culture, like, it is starting to get flattened. And this is also something that you see no matter what city you're in.
So, okay, she's saying culture is flattening. I'm saying costs are rising because of the opportunities that is presented to the average person and every person due to social media and, you know, the Android-like or, you know, effect of amplifying everything that you do through this network around the world.
A lot of coffee shops look very similar. A lot of coffee shops are kind of just going to the least common denominator of design, hoping that people might put it on their Instagram stories and influence other people to come here subtly. Since that day, I've wanted to make a video about this topic, and so I've been doing some research and trying to pull in more examples, and I actually stumbled across Kyle Chaika, who has written a couple articles and coined the term the airspace aesthetic, which essentially is that like nebulous phrase to describe why all these coffee shops look very similar, why all Airbnbs that came up around the same time all have that same look and feel, and there might be like Etsy posters on the wall, and just a very, very palatable, easy to digest space with not a lot of friction, not a lot of quirkiness or actual differentiation, more so just going to like the most popular.
Boho was shabby chic, something like that. In a way, I guess that's kind of almost what she's describing here, I would think, but curated for shareability, and you're wanting to share this on social media.
Stuff that is being sold and regurgitated in all these different types of spaces. The fact that the design of the space itself doesn't have any like fun flair of its own anymore. The individuality is lost in order to create this like very easily shareable designed space. The pressure to make things Instagrammable starts to make things more and more identical. And as someone who creates content for an algorithmic feed, Lord knows that I am grappling with this every single day. So let's unpack it together. My name's Kate Cassidy, and on this channel I talk about themes in media, tech, culture, and how they all intertwine. And so if you're interested in this, like, check out my other stuff. Maybe stay.
And I will have the link to her video below, so you can go and watch this video or subscribe to her channel.
I'll check it all out. When we start to think about this cultural homogenization that is happening, it's impossible to not talk about the acceleration of trends.
Okay, cultural homogenization, I really do like that, especially if you talk about the influence of AI and how, we may actually be in the matrix, et cetera, et cetera. She's got more of an insider's view here because she worked for TikTok. And so I think she's got some really good insight.
And the fact that social media platforms have become this engine, this machine that pumps out trends given the algorithmic feeds. Trend cycles have become hyper accelerated, with micro trends rising and falling in a matter of weeks or even days in some cases. And the truth is, these micro trends, like everything, becomes a remix of each other. It's all just copying each other to jump on this trend, to leap on this moment because it could be gone in a matter of days.
Yeah.
Nothing sticks around long enough to actually become truly deeply embedded culture. It's all
Okay. And what she's saying, and probably one of the reasons why she quit social media, is because of the hijacking of people's attention for cheap dopamine hits. That's basically what TikTok is all about. And their entire algorithm and the way that app works is designed to hijack your attention and give you cheap dopamine hits. And then you've done that for so long, you don't realize you're stuck in that and nothing else matters.
all just content. Like, when this is kind of a nebulous concept, but when we think about true pillars of culture, when we think about the fact that like jazz became a big cultural institution in Harlem in the 1900s, or I don't know, pasta in Italy. Like, when you think of these like cultural pillars, these things take time to develop. It takes time, it takes depth.
Well, they have taken time traditionally in the past, but we don't live in that world anymore. And right now, I think that it's so easy to get distracted by all this cheap dopamine hits that the regular Joe and Jane can't even see through the clouds and the smoke to determine or even recognize the big problems that are affecting society that really need their focus.
It usually starts on a more localized level. It's not just these like flattened, short little bites that are being thrown out there, and that trend, that bit of what might be considered culture, it's going to be gone in a season. True culture needs to build over time. It can't be packaged up in these little digestible bites that are like perfectly instantly curated to a specific aesthetic. There's simply no time for depth on these.
She's talking about curating culture. Um, Culture. I'm not even sure how that applies to the current hijacked attention spans of everyone, because, and maybe that's the whole point of this video, is that there is no culture anymore.
These social media platforms, the fact that if we compare this to true culture that was developed on maybe a local level or regionally, or maybe there was some identity.
That used to be the way it was, right? It used to be that so much of what you did with your life and the opportunities that were available to you were dependent on exactly where you grew up. I mean, I grew up in that time in the 70s and 80s. I'm 55. So she didn't grow up then. I don't know where she grew up or what her age is. I'd have to guess maybe she's 30. I don't know. I'm guessing anyway. And, but yeah, it used to be that that was a thing. Now everybody has all the information. So you can use it in one of two ways: to hijack your attention and you don't do anything and you're like a robot, or you can hyper learn so much and have so many advantages, so many opportunities that you never had, And she's, of course, talking about the dark side of this.
Localized identity signifiers of being in a cultural moment, like the punk movement or something like that, where there were more shared values and other shared aesthetics that came up more naturally. These platforms instead perpetuate algorithmically driven sameness globally. There is no time or space for
Oh, yeah.
subcultural things to evolve. And maybe they do evolve, but it's in these like trendy, aestheticized, palatable bites. Because these feeds are global, and due to the nature that the algorithms themselves actually amplify content that is doing popularly or doing well, and then people jump on it and just replicate the same thing that they know is working, and then creates
Iterate.
this trend or micro trend.
Yeah.
It also demands sameness, because if you want to jump on something that's hot, you're just going to have to copy it. And the way that this content values performance over individuality then again leads to this cultural homogenization.
Okay, so it's all about clickbait. Everything's clickbait. That's what she's saying, and I do agree with that. So people are starving for actual real knowledge, real information, because all they're getting is curated clickbait all the time, 24/7. That's how most people are. If you're a consumer of social media and the internet, that's what you're getting, curated clickbait all the time. If you are someone who's producing, which I highly recommend, and almost nobody is, I mean, she is here. Kate is her name, yeah. Kate Cassidy, she's doing it, so that's good. You can learn some good information from these people.
Regardless of geography, you could be seeing the same visuals, the same styles, the same voices in the little sound bites that you're hearing over and over again. And because of this, there can be an erosion of local identity and diversity. Like, if you may see that
Okay.
you're
Erosion of local identity and diversity, that's actually a good thing for extremely rural communities who I still hear some complaining about lack of broadband internet. I mean, all you got to do is get Starlink, no problem. Then you, of course, you bring all your population into these nonstop dopamine hits. It's the problem. You have to, with intention, decide to do something great, and you can do that. Now, if you're in the cities, which used to be these oases of diversity and unusuality, are no longer, and they won't. They're more like havens for millionaires, I'd say, is what they are at this point. Everyone else is getting forced out. But then the rural areas can also gain all these things. So this is a good thing. I'm looking at this as an optimist, and obviously someone that's not in the industry or hasn't been in the industry like Kate has. So I don't have all that information, but I'm just giving you my opinion.
your local subculture might hit the algorithm at some point, or a trend might be made out of it, but it really can only be exportable globally if it fits into the feed, if it's stripped down in a way that loses a sense of meaning deep.
Okay, I'm not sure if I agree with her on that. And the reason why is because of the rise of AI, because AI can create this content instantly. AI can analyze the algorithm and the feed and see and iterate, and just throw out all kinds of content. But people are realizing that's going on. Okay, I look for videos like hers where there's an actual human, hopefully not reading from a teleprompter with AI curated script. Okay, hopefully not. But these are the people I want to hear from now, real humans. Okay, so there's an opportunity here, if you ask me.
Deeper meaning of that cultural subtext, all to make it more palatable to global audiences. And I would actually love to hear from you on this point, because I do live in New York, which even traditionally, even before social media, New York and LA were obviously these havens of culture being created because.
Okay, this is what I was saying. Okay, let's see if we can get over that. Not blinking. Okay, yeah, but yeah, in the past they were oases, like I was saying, because that's where you went. You had to go to get this new knowledge, to get exposed to things that you wouldn't be exposed to. Nowadays, I even question travel because everything's out there on the internet. I mean, yeah, there's maybe the value for that will return now that AI has taken over the internet, even though the dead internet theory, which says that most of the content that's created since 2016, and it's only getting higher and higher, is actually AI, not human created. So, but still, that's the value. The value is for the small places. I think I have a feeling she's just a city person and she doesn't recognize the value for the super small places, but it is there these days. It is the most rural of places have gotten so many advantages recently.
Traditional media industries like magazines and TV also being based in these places, but I had a
Yeah, traditional. That's the word. They're dying off. They're dying out. They're losing their subscriber base. They used to be the only game in town, like the New York Times, New York Post. That was it, right? Now, every New York person in the city can have their own blog or their own YouTube channel or their own whatever.
commenter recently informed me that even in their own local culture and their own country, they were having very Americanized language take over in the local public schools because people were seeing American TikTok content or social media content and were starting to just repeat those sound bites and
Okay, this has been going on forever and a day. That's the thing. Everybody always wants to be like Americans, and I and Denise, my wife, try to tell people don't. The average American is chronically ill. I'm 55, but anybody over 50 pretty much is chronically ill. Overweight. We have so many bad habits. It's insane. And that's all driven by this American culture. I don't think it's a good thing. So, yeah, she's saying that as an idea that culture's flattening. I think the real danger here is that everyone else is trying to and may actually become like Americans, and we are in a completely dysfunctional, uh, degenerative system over here.
using this like very Americanized language in their own local spaces. So I would love to hear if you are experiencing that. I think this is one of those points that I can only really understand when I have discussions with you all about it. So thank you for informing me that this was happening, but it's something that I can kind of be a little bit removed from given I'm already here so deep in it and having worked for TikTok. Like I know that I'm trying to like pull back the curtain on these concepts. Like I am obviously really kind of entrenched in this space. Very meta point here as I make this on YouTube. This loss of individuality is manifest.
But again, YouTube, for the most part, other than the shorts, is long form content without the cheap dopamine hits. Hopefully, somebody like you who's watching this and comment down below if you're getting some value out of this is thinker and you want to improve society. And hopefully, this type of content is attractive to you.
Manifesting in a number of different ways, and we're seeing the rise of the algorithmic self. The fact that people are kind of molding themselves, whether they know it or not, to fit the algorithms, whether consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah, I would say that this is also part of AI. And I like what she said about people are molding themselves, whether consciously or unconsciously. I think so much is being done unconsciously. I see people out there that who are addicted to these cheap dopamine hits, thinking they're making decisions on their own. And I'm thinking, no, no, they're not. They're not. And you think, and as an example of this, as a main example of this, does anyone want to be sick? The answer is no. Well, then why is everyone chronically ill? Why would everyone choose to do this? Because maybe they're unconsciously being led to make these decisions, like she's saying. So I agree with that.
We're learning to act, think, and speak the way that the algorithms want us to. And you might be seeing similar intros, similar hot takes, or similar niches that are popping off, all because this is what is performing. And of course, as someone creating on YouTube, this is something that I'm very aware of, especially with my hand gestures. You guys, I get a lot of comments on my hand gestures. I do get made fun of in real life for the amount of gesticulating that I do. So
I'd say that's definitely a thing with a lot of videos, and even I get into it from time to time. I mean, right now I'm trying to control this switching between videos. So I'm not doing as many hand gestures, and I'm doing more analysis here. In my own videos, though, I tend to do that. That's definitely a thing that people do. And the more they're in the content creation, I'd say the more people do that.
oh, this is not just for social media. I promise you, I'm made fun of as much as I am made fun of in the comment section, in person too. I'm not even Italian, I'm Irish American, and yet here I am with my gesticulations. But I'm gonna try and keep my hands on my T more, just to kind of ease people's stress about the amount I move my hands, apparently. I think another really interesting way that the algorithm is impacting culture is the fact that it is rewarding short visual cues over more deep cultural richness, like the fact that if you're seeing a half a second clip of green powder that someone's putting in their water, you get that visual context like, oh, this is a wellness TikTok that I'm seeing. Or if you see someone pick up the tote bag for half a second before they head out the door to the local library, that's that shorthand to signify that the creator that you are consuming is an intellectual or is a quirky bookworm. Culture has traditionally required a deeper backstory or shared cultural context and experiences. But if now all it takes to signal the fact that you belong to a certain group identity is a 2-second clip that shows off a certain vibe or aesthetic, there's no real connection there. It's just this constant ambient branding that's happening in the background.
And you don't think she's doing that here with her videos with the, was it the tea, the cup of tea here with her caffeine that is fueling her enthusiasm, and the fake fireplace over here. You see? Hopefully you can see this with my arrow, but there's a fake fireplace over there on the side. There's a real fireplace, but that's not actually going. And there are books. Anyway, just pointing that out. Probably could use some better examples than that, but that's all I got.
And a negative flip side of this is when you look at it the other way, is because we're being trained to do and replicate what is performing, we're also starting to see, I believe, certain creators partake in certain aspects of self-censorship. They are actually stifling their own individuality in different ways, knowing that maybe this one area of themselves that
I would say for sure, this has been going on since the beginning of time in all different types of formats, not just the internet, way before the internet existed. And I will tell you that I don't do that, probably to my own financial detriment. But I have one life to live, and I want to do the best I can, and I want to tell the truth. So that's going to mean making some decisions and conveying some information that may hurt my financial self.
Is a differentiator, isn't going to lead to high performance. So they're just going to shove that down, turn that part of themselves off, and not bring this to the audience. And that loss of individuality and actually intentional stifling of individuality is a really dangerous thing when you think about it.
Another thing here,
it's definitely
is her nails. You see those? That's another thing that she's curated here in her videos. Make sure that you get the painted fingernails in there along with everything else. Not to say that that's not why I'm watching the content on this channel. I think she actually has some really good intellectual content, and that's why I'm here. I'm just pointing out that she's kind of doing the things that she's complaining about a little, but we all do. We all do.
Like a negative trend that we're seeing. Creators are optimizing for what works, and in that same process, they're actually just starting to lose their own voices. But we're not just seeing this in the way that they dress or the way that they speak. It's even going so far as our physical appearances, which was made public in an article that
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in this video or another one that I was doing recently, but all women want to try to look the same. That's why I point out the painted fingernails. They all have this idea of what they need for their own, and it's never ending. It's constant consumerism, constant, I'm not good enough. My fingernails do not look good enough. I must paint them. I can't go without doing that. That's not the look I want. That's not me. That's not what I want to achieve, but she's brainwashed to be a consumer.
Talked about the Instagram face. I think there's no debate at this point that many of the pop culture icons or content creators are all starting to look kind of similar with high cheekbones and really narrow noses and a ton of filler in their lips. And what's crazy is this wasn't really the case, or at least not as prevalent a case.
Oh my gosh. I'm a guy, okay? And I look around and I can see it's so obvious that people that have had the Botox fillers and lip stuff, and it's not normal or natural or anything. And I can only imagine the side effects of this stuff that we determine 50 years from now that people have to deal with from that. Oops, sorry.
Before the existence and widespread adoption of social media, this entire thing, this entire trend, the Instagram face, is an algorithm-generated phenomenon. This ideal beauty standard is being flattened to meet algorithmic approval.
Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way is that what you incentivize will flourish. She's not using those words, but I'm going to use those words. And that's true with anything and everything since the beginning of time. that's what flourishes, whatever you incentivize. And there's a giant financial incentive as an influencer or something, content going viral, to do the things that she's saying.
And this can really be harmful for people in terms of
Definitely.
self-acceptance and embracing what makes you different in your individuality. I know that I actually personally had a lot of struggle growing up with comparison to other people, because Instagram was starting to become really popular in
Must be
my
younger.
middle school or more like high school years. And I got very, very close to getting a nose job because I hated my nose. I thought I did not look pretty. And of course, what I was
Okay, I grew up in an affluent area in Montgomery County outside of DC. I was in high school in the 80s, graduated in 88. And there were people who did that then, but they had money. These were all well-to-do people. They also were influenced by their environment, and that's what they saw, people acquiring everything. They had the money, they did this, that. So I saw that early on when I went to school. I was seeing that. She's maybe just seeing this now, and this is probably true at every high school now, but I'm just telling you, this is not a new phenomenon. If the money has been there, because we all have a higher standard of living than ever, whether we choose to admit it or not here in the United States, and if the influence was there from others that you consider your peers, whether they're in person or on the internet, then you're going to do those things. More people are going to do those things.
thinking was being dictated by the type of content that I was consuming online, specifically social media. And now what I love to think about is the fact that I've just really come to love my nose, even though it isn't a traditionally beautiful
Good for you.
nose. Like,
Yes.
I'll give you the profile. I used to hate this profile. I'll give it to you. And it's just something that makes me unique. And now, like, that uniqueness is what I love about it. But because of these algorithms, uniqueness often doesn't perform.
Yeah, I would say that's a thing. Everyone's going for the same thing, robotic, like sheep, the sheeple. And I do think that's why I seek out individual content creators like her, long form content creators that make you think, because they're real humans and hopefully not, like I said, hopefully not reading from a teleprompter with an AI generated script. Hopefully not. All right. But I agree that that's going forward in the future. That's going to be much more valuable, is individually curated and authored content from actual humans.
So it's interesting to think it could be really, really harmful for people having these really idealized beauty standards that are being dictated by social media
Sure.
platforms and algorithms that have been built by.
If only women could recognize this. There is so much consumerism in every mall. I go to them with Denise all the time. The women's sections are so much larger than the men's. I mean, it would bankrupt so many of these businesses. But yeah, it's a bad thing. It's only getting worse. It's like it keeps building exponentially, it seems like to me.
A handful of few men who
Yep. She's saying the men created the algorithm.
wanted to make a whole bunch of money. I made a separate video on that. You can listen to that rant in another video. On social media, the real value.
Yeah, so think about that. All the women going after these ideal versions of whatever is so that those few men could make a shit ton of money, shit ton of cash.
The real currency at the end of the day is attention. I've talked about this before. Algorithms reward sameness because it's predictable. It's encouraging just instantly understandable content versus thoughtful, deep content, which is the content that I'm trying to make on this channel. So if you have enjoyed this conversation thus far, I hope you consider subscribing. Sorry, appeasing the algorithm here. Especially when you consider short form video content, where the cuts are so fast, there is no space for depth. There is no space for really thoughtful context. It's all just this very instantly digestible, palatable content. When you extrapolate this fact out, you can start to see or have a bigger picture of the fact that this cultural flattening argument that I am making is happening in part because this virality that people want to create content for, that people want to hop on trends for, that people want to see their own content perform, that virality really demands conformity because that's the way the trends work. Especially nowadays when you see how social media platforms have evolved, subcultures can't really thrive in the same way that this like cultural monoculture will, because these subcultures can't scale. And if you can't scale, it's kind of going to disappear. And
Wait a minute. Just because a subculture can't scale doesn't mean it's going to disappear. That's where you get into the real authentic, real world, real life type of stuff that was never intended to get super big. And because of the internet, you can connect with people and actually grow and make those communities and culture aspects sustainable in a way that was not possible in the past. So she's thinking like the end goal is to make as much money as possible. And I guess it is for the tech bros and everything. But you can also use this in a way that where the average Joe and the average Jane can benefit in their kind of like smaller scale operation.
weirdness isn't being embraced in the same way, at least not at such a popular level by these algorithms, just because it's not as popular. What used to make culture very rich was the fact that it was original, was the fact that it wasn't scalable, the fact that there were differentiating identities.
Okay, she's talking about old school New York City, Los Angeles, like she said. And yeah, that was back in the day. Like, oh, we got to go to New York or LA to get the culture, but not anymore. So much of that is going away, especially post COVID. But you know, it it gives advantages to others. That's the thing. You can't look at this as one sided. She's obviously an urban city person, so she's feeling the like we're past peak on that. Like we're past peak on capitalism, which I do believe we are. But there are other alternative ways of living that are better that can be done, and you don't need to lament for the past or even a world that if you're so young, you didn't even. I feel like yeah, I see that a lot. Gen Alpha, Gen Z laments for a time that they never were even existing in. you know, you can still make the modern version of that nowadays, but I guess we always get romantic when it comes to the past.
Or things that made you unique, and enough people who shared this like shared the same culture. All of that friction now gets filtered out just to popularize whatever is clickable, whatever is shareable, because at the end of the day, these platforms, they're there to make money. They're there to make money, not be purveyors of culture, even though they unconsciously, or maybe consciously, are doing that as well. This is definitely something I think about all the time with my own YouTube. I'm trying to be as conscious as possible of doing things my own way. Even with my earlier videos, I felt almost pressured into this trap of wanting to edit in a very certain style, wanting to add in a lot of sound bites that would, you know, do attention hacking, or I think they call it retention editing. That's actually what they.
Okay, and maybe she has felt that pressure and even knows what she's talking about. I don't do any of that stuff. I never have. And like I said, I think that the real play going forward is going to be genuine content from authentic humans, and you don't need any of that editing for that.
They call it. And now I've just decided to like completely throw those to the side to try and do things my own way, because it feels inauthentic when you aren't, you know, just doing things in your own individual way, or sharing your unique differentiators that make you you. So that's something I'm going to try and stay committed to here in this evolution of my journey here on YouTube. So thank you for being with me, even though this is a bit of a ramble today. Even though now that I'm creating on YouTube, I'm a little bit more in touch with myself. I'm a little older, like that really helps with certain of the certain psychological side effects that come with this constant exposure to the cultural sameness and flattening that's being amplified by social media algorithms. Not everyone is as critical thinking as I am, and as you probably are if you've made it to this point in the video. And there can be a lot of harm that comes from that. People can have identity confusion if you're just taking in the noise of all.
Okay, well, that's another thing, is that we've trained our brains, all right, for the short form content. The people that are growing up in this, they don't know any different than the short, quick dopamine hits, the cheap dopamine hits from the short form content. And that means your brain has had the attention span trained out of it. And you can train it the other way. And I hope that, you know, she'll continue to make her content, and I will continue as well with a lot of the longer form content for those reasons.
all these different trends and sound bites and constant digital stimuli, rather than starting to become more in tune with yourself and what your own identity is, or looking at your own localized community culture. All of that can really lead to a lot of confusion and internal stress. Social comparison is obviously harmful in very many ways, like the way that I almost got a nose job. And then
Okay, social comparison, like I said, has always been around. And if you went to a place like I did for high school that was well off, I saw it all the time around there. Has nothing to do with the internet necessarily, although I'm sure it's made it worse. That and social media.
then, even as a creative, if you are someone who is writing or creating for the platforms, trying to keep up with the algorithm all the time can really lead to creative burnout. And that's such a shame, that the fact that we have to play.
If only I had that problem trying to keep up with the algorithm. I know it's there. I hear everyone talking about it all the time, and I guess all their stuff's gone viral and they're all famous. But then again, everyone's famous these days, it seems like. Being famous is not like what it used to be, where there are only a few famous people. Now everyone's famous, so it's kind of lost whatever it was that came along with that. That's gone, if you ask me.
Play by the rules of these platforms that are built for us to create on top on, all by the same couple monopoly companies. It's just like a funny dynamic that I'm very aware of. And again, thank you to YouTube, the gracious host, who is allowing me to have this conversation with you guys right now. If everything is a trend, nothing can really feel meaningful. And especially for creators who are feeling pressured to try and create content that performs on top of these platforms.
One thing I want to mention here is that she has a lot of edits in here. When I say edits, I don't mean, yeah, she has some graphics here and there and a few links, but I'm more concerned that she's not recording this in one stream, because I think that more of what I see that I like is from actual humans like myself that are just doing this whole thing in one take only.
That draw to appease the algorithm and not fall behind also lends itself to culture becoming more and more the same, because in some ways, whether we like it or not, these influencers are impacting culture. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you're scared by that, that's like kind of a conversation for another day. But that's just like, again, starting to perpetuate this global cultural sameness that we're seeing. I think that's personally why I find that some of the most genuine creators are people who are doing other things in their lives and instead are showing up on these platforms to share certain messages, or like using it more as a side hobby than their main hustle. Because if you are just creating content as your main gig, you might not have that same desire to develop your own individuality.
And by the way, if you are a full-time 24/7 content creator and making most of your money off of one platform or channel, you have way too many vested interests into, like she said, producing the type of content that she's discussing, which is inauthentic, if you ask me. It's just a money-making job. It's just a job. And so you're not the average Joe or Jane anymore. That's the problem.
And have deeper taste and figure out your own takes. Instead, you're just feeling that pressure to constantly copy what is working. Like if you're just content creating for the sake of content creating, then you can constantly scroll through and have endless reference points for what you think might perform, rather than what you actually want to make, or who you actually are and how you genuinely.
Well, that's debatable. If you're not doing what you actually want to make, I think a lot of these creators who are full-time creators, they want to make the content that makes them the most money. Okay. They are consumerist, they are materialistic, and they're part of late stage capitalism and this broken system that we live in.
Want to authentically show up as on a platform. It again is that like psychological background loss of identity that might be happening for certain content creators who are having that confusion of who am I as an individual outside.
It's not confusion. They are materialistic. Keep that in mind. They are materialistic. They want to be millionaires, billionaires, increase their net worth, and that's why they're doing this, for that sole purpose and goal.
Of how I am showing up and creating content on a platform, which is just a very interesting dynamic. And I think
So I want to say that it's refreshing to me that Kate is making this content because I get the feeling that she's not like that. Although maybe she quit her tech job and she needs money really bad, and she's just trying to say, "Hey, what if I had this idea where I was a genuine, authentic content creator, but I really wasn't because I know all the inside stuff and I know how to do this and it could be that too." Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments.
I think we can't also not touch upon the fact that because everything, these platforms, these algorithms are driven for engagement. They're made to increase engagement. So at the end of the day, these platforms and these handful of people who work at them can make money. They also become a breeding ground
And
for
Kate makes money.
negativity and polarization because the algorithm monetizes our worst instincts. And again,
Yeah, and drama sells, drama captures attention.
I've talked about this more in previous videos, but there's a whole psychology that goes into this doom scrolling and why negativity tends to be what works best on the platform. So that's
Yeah,
a
it's bad.
conversation for another day.
Negativity tends to work best. So yeah, thankful that she keeps it positive. I try to keep mine positive. I'm definitely an optimist, and I know that disappoints a lot of people out there. But I hope that she's being genuine. I hope that she is a real human that is doing this for the greater good. I tend to think that she is. Otherwise, I would not be bringing this content, the critique of this content, to my channel.
But it's just another flip side of the coin that we need to be thinking about. This sensationalized content can often be some of the better performing content on platforms, which again leads to this weird dynamic where culture is being molded and flattened by algorithmic feeds. All these different points tie together and start to like explain why everything feels so similarly now, why there's a lot of aesthetics. There's like the clean girl aesthetic, or apartments are being designed in very similar ways and buying the same Etsy like posters or the same furniture in every single apartment, or the language that we're using, they're just talking in sound bites often. Just last night, I was out in New York excuse me, I burped. I'm gonna start. No, I'm gonna keep going.
I would not
Just
edit that
last
out.
night, I was out in New York City, and I was out in an area that's admittedly a little younger. I felt a little old at this bar that I was at, but it was very interesting. I felt like I was
So
on a
they're
little
20s,
anthropological study
and
because
she's
I was
30,
there and I was just
32,
observing and
33.
taking in,
I don't know.
especially the girls' clothing. It was very interesting.
All
A
the same.
lot of outfits and design and fashion
Oh, I saw
felt
this
very
picture. It was Gen Z trying to hail Ubers at the end of the night, and all the women had the same style of jeans on, the same top or shirt that they had on. There was like out of a crowd of 20, there were like 8 of them that looked the same. That was just something that came across my feed.
copy paste to me. And that was kind of a shame to see because I don't know, New York is such like a fun place in terms of it's a place where fashion can be such a form of self-expression. You can be whoever you want to be here. There's this intense kind of acceptance and tolerance of individuality, and yet here I was out at this bar, out at a couple bars in this neighborhood, and everyone kind of looked the same, kind of was acting the same way.
Yep.
Everyone was dressed in the same 2 colors and wearing similar looking boots and similar accessories. And I was just thinking there like,
Just so you know, I've thought this for decades. I even joke around with my wife Denise, and I say, hasn't every item of clothing and style already been invented? I mean, I look around, I go into these malls, and it's like a maze, like the most complicated jigsaw puzzle ever of all types and styles of clothing, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't make any sense to me. There's no way in my mind that people are inventing new things. At this point, it's got to be repetition. We've already invented everything. Can't we just be okay with what we've already done? And she's even pointing out, well, everyone looked the same. Well, yeah, okay. But does everyone need to look different? Do we need a different style all the time? This whole fast fashion thing, but that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
this is just a shame in New York. Like I love fashion. I love trying to share your own personal individuality through.
Okay, share it, but everything else, everything's already been invented in fashion. That's what I'm saying. What hasn't? I don't understand the obsession at this point in time in 2025. I understand in the past, but not anymore.
What you put on and the way you present yourself. And instead, I think a lot of my at least conjecture was that I think a lot of these people, a lot of these girls who are a little bit younger than me, probably spend a lot of time on social media, and
Okay, so she's saying because of this that social media is flattening culture. I'm saying maybe that's all played out. Maybe we are at late stage fashion now. Okay. I hope so. I'd rather have the same clothes to wear every day so I don't have to think about it. That's actually what apparently a lot of billionaires do is they don't want to spend any time thinking about that because their time is so valuable. There's way more important things to do than what you happen to look like one day of your life.
that's how they are developing their own clothing style and their own personal taste. Whether they know it or not, they're being influenced by these algorithmic
Sure.
feeds that are flattening culture. Beyond aesthetics, beyond fashion, we're also seeing music is being created to try
Oh,
and reach
music, that's another one. It used to be that people would get an identity or have some identity with a decade based on their music, right? But does any music represent what's going on now since the 2010s? Has there been I don't think so. I think there's so many it's because there's so many choices. It used to be you had limited choices and used to be you had to get a record deal, right? Or you couldn't get anyone to listen to your stuff other than people around your neighborhood. And now nobody needs a record deal. And because of that, we have so many choices, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, it takes away that identity that people have had in past decades with the music and the memories it brings up. I think future generations aren't going to have that anymore. And that's okay.
TikTok virality. Like,
Another thing is I want to say before we move on here is that just like hasn't all clothes been designed so there's no more new fashion? Hasn't all music, haven't all notes been played? I know. For real. I'm being real here. We got to concentrate on more important things, don't we? Don't we? Aren't there more important things to be concerned about?
specifically, I think artists are adding in little sound bites that they think might go TikTok viral, because that's how, if you are a musician, that's a really good way to have marketing and gain exposure. We're also seeing coffee shops look very similar anywhere in the world. Like, that is something that I think
Oh, yeah.
is a critique of the fact that
But isn't it also because we've already done everything there with coffee shops? Aren't coffee shops played out? I mean, I'm trying to, the reason why I'm saying this is not because we have nothing to live for. I'm like, why don't we concentrate on what's next? If we've already gotten through all these iterations of all these things, aren't there way more important problems to solve that we can devote our attention to and actually solve now because we've already solved all these other less important issues?
cultural identity isn't there anymore. No matter what city you're in, you can probably find a little hipster coffee shop. You can probably find
Oh, yeah.
somewhere to post up, and it'll be a very like
Yeah, every little small town has a coffee shop now, just like she's saying, just like she's talking about. I think that in other videos of her, she's talked about what she thinks is the best coffee shop in the world, which is Beans in the Belfry, which is over there in Brunswick, Maryland. Okay. I drive by it. Denise and I have drive by it many, many times. We've never stopped. At some point, we will, but it better. I don't know if it's going to live up to what she's built it up to, being like the ultimate coffee shop. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll find out that it is. But I still think that it's just like she said. It's all been played out. It's all been done. Who's that? Bare Naked Ladies. It's all been done before.
calming space, very like hipster space. Even opinions now are kind of coming pre-packaged. Like,
Sorry.
instead of people having, how do I explain this? Instead of people having like their own formed political opinion or your own actual genuine authentic take on
She
something,
knows this. We know this,
it's
of
based
course, because that's why the politicians spend so much time on social media, and they've determined that that is the way to win elections, is to spend all that time influencing the public on social media.
on your own lived experience in this world. Instead of coming to those conclusions on your own, a lot of takes feel very similar to me and are easily digestible and come in these little like Canva templates, like shareable Canva templates, people's
Or
political
political memes.
opinions and
And by the way, I don't get into politics. I kind of laugh at it, if anything, although I know if you're in the politics that you may be upset by hearing that from me, that I laugh at politics. But it's all you can do because we end up somewhere in the middle anyway. And I think that the people in control, the oligarchs or the techno feudalists, the lords of techno feudalism, they all control everyone by keeping us distracted by, in the political fight, just like the gender wars and everything else that's going on.
Feelings on certain topics are also being influenced by the algorithms and by what is shareable and clickable. Or, on the negative side, what will pique outrage, and which is often why we are
Oh yeah,
seeing such
what
drastic
bleeds
polarization.
leads.
The algorithm
That's the thing. What bleeds leads. This is not new to social media. It's just a newer way of iterating it, but it's the same old, same old.
algorithms are just feeding into this because, again, like that sort of content is often what is most highly shareable, clickable,
Hmm.
or breeds the most
Oh yeah.
engagement. I hope I don't sound on a high horse right now or like I am like separating myself from what is happening. I obviously come up against
She has
this
insight.
every day, but I think we have to just start to point at this and
Yes,
talk about it candidly, that we're all experiencing this
for
great
sure.
cultural flattening that is being designed by the algorithms and ultimately
Okay, cultural flattening, like I said, the more I listen to what she has to say about this, the more I'm thinking it's just the large corporations that run the world, funneling everyone in to continually being enslaved to the desires of the large corporations, which is to make them into consumers.
ultimately is being monetized for our attentions. Like that's just what's
Yeah,
happening. Like
it is. It is. But why is it being monetized for your attention? It's because the large corporations want to funnel you in to you doing as they want you to do.
let's at least be open about it. Let's at least
Oh, they're
try
never
and
going to
start
be
to be
open.
more intentional in our consumption patterns, knowing that this is what's
Okay. Yes, I agree. The large corporations are never going to be open about this. This is why lobbying is legal in the United States, which would normally be considered corruption in any other country. But yeah, we can make better choices. We can be intentional with what we do. We can choose what to feed our eyes and ears, which is just as important as the food that goes into our mouths. And if you want to know more about the food and how you can avoid being chronically ill, check out a plantbaseddiet.org, our nonprofit that we volunteer at. Okay, all this stuff is basically volunteer work. We're trying to improve society for future generations, and I do believe that Kate here is as well, and that's why you know, I'm delivering this content that she has along with my analysis.
happening. And I think this matters more than people realize because culture isn't about conformity. It's about how we
Right?
understand ourselves and others and how we all relate to each other. And it needs to be complex. It needs to be slow and personalized. And all of those things aren't scalable. I think we need to
Actually, I think it is personalized, and I think it is scalable. I think she's missing the point here. That's what AI is doing behind the scenes, and you don't even know what's happening right now. And that's why she's seeing the end result of what's happening. But it's because AI is making it personable and in a way that you can't even tell what's going on.
continue or at least start to push back on all things being purposefully made to be viral because in that push for virality things become really shallow and
Yeah, it distorts things. It definitely distorts things in that push for virality. I fully agree with that.
also really disposable. Like this trend, this popular sound, this thing that we are copying, it'll disappear in a week.
Yeah, remember the ice bath, the ice bucket bath, or whatever that trend was? Nobody's doing that anymore. But just disappeared, disappeared.
And maybe we'll forget about it forever. When everything is getting pressured to become like algorithmic in a sense, because everyone's creating with it's at least in some way, shape, or form, the algorithm in the back of their mind, originality and individuality becomes a risky thing. People don't want to show certain parts.
Okay, it is risky, but people like myself, and I believe others, and it's kind of like relating to the matrix that are waking up to what's going on, they're going to want to interact with real humans for real on real levels about real content from real people. I do believe that that is a desire of humans, that humans don't desire the way it is right now. And yeah, we need to do what's necessary to wake up and realize that that's what's happening and that we can choose differently, hopefully.
of themselves, or people don't want to be authentic because it's kind of risky, it might not perform, it might get you canceled, and all of these things are unfortunately
Demonetized.
starting to
Oops.
just make culture seem less rich and unique and beautiful and deep. Creativity also thrives best in spaces that allow for friction and disagreement,
Yeah.
freedom and
Like in the
nuance
comment
rather
section.
than optimization at all costs. When we lose depth, we lose identity and curiosity and our weird or quirky differentiators that make each of us individuals. And all of these things are key ingredients of genuine, deep culture. Knowing all of this, I think it's so important that we all try and practice intentional consumption, but also allow for spaces that challenge us or surprise us, trying to curate our feeds for more friction. Inviting more friction into
Hope
our
I'm
daily
providing some
lives will be
friction here
better
with this
for
video
all
and
of
the
us and allow
ideas.
culture to flourish again. I think another way that I hope, and I am personally trying to push back against this algorithmic feeds, is that it's important to find communities outside of the
Oh, yeah.
feed. And so that's why I'm actually building
In the
a
real
space.
world. Okay. So we're not going to get into that, but we are doing that as well. So I want to kind of like end on that. We are developing communities as well, because when you realize there's a problem and you realize it's incessant, I mean, it's everywhere. It's people. The whole system's designed around it. You can't just solve it on your own. You've got to build community, and you've got to raise awareness. You've got to provide support, because you become like the 5 people you hang around with the most. So let me know in the comments what your most important takeaway from this was, whether it was something that Kate said or something that I said or nothing, or you realized the stuff on your own before and this was a waste of your time. I would appreciate it. But if you've gotten this far, please like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.